for those that aren't in automotive, Tier 1 are the companies that sell directly to the automakers. And my title is U.S. OEM Business Unit EVP. The OEMs are the original equipment manufacturers, so the folks that are actually making the vehicles. We're headquartered in Tokyo, Japan. We have 220,000 employees globally at 41 locations, about $16 billion in sales last year. So if I put that into Michigan terms, we have 3 locations in Michigan. Our North American headquarters is down in the Metro Detroit area in Canton, Michigan, which is on the west side of Metro Detroit. We have a facility in Lansing that takes care of the GM assembly plants that are in Lansing. And just down the coast in Petoskey, Michigan, we have a terminal stamping company. CCC stands for Circuit Controls Corporation. And this is actually a facility we're very excited about. It's been in Yazaki for years, but we've just partnered in the last couple of years with the MEDC to go through a pretty significant expansion for new business at that location. I think from a Yazaki standpoint, what resonates with us in terms of the topics today, the global marketplace, absolutely. The war for talent, and I think in automotive today, we look at that as we're all in this together because we all need great talent, and the talent pool just isn't large enough today with the recovery in the automotive industry. So it's a great problem, we're growing, but it's a tough problem. And the basis of that talent is education. Okay.
John?
John?
I'm John Kennedy, and I started Autocam actually 25 years ago, and on the west side of the state, although I grew up in the Detroit area, a number of the suburban areas and went to University of Detroit, so I have a very strong tie to Detroit. The business that I started today is a business that is a global supplier to the automotive industry. We've tended to follow our customers around the world. So we have plants in Asia, South America, obviously North America and Europe, and which we supply to large tier ones such as a Bosch is actually our largest customer. So we supply basically very close tolerance machine parts, and so our jobs that we have in Michigan are all highly skilled positions. Our average hourly W-2 is $53,000, so we're at the higher end of the pay scale. Our business is growing obviously because we followed the growth in the fuel systems has been our strategy, and as those products have gotten more and more precise, they've used more and more of the type of product that we do and deliver. And so today we have 1,700 people in our automotive business because we now have separated the Autocam business that we started in '88 into 2 businesses. One is transportation and one is medical. But our transportation business is 1,700 people on a global basis. 700 of those, all of our workers are here in Michigan in the U.S. And the 2 things that I would be obviously interested in continuing to talk about is obviously attracting talent, which is a big problem for us, particularly in what I would call the middle skills area, not necessarily college grads. We're able to attract the engineers that we need to our plants, but the middle skilled, the technicians, relatively high paid jobs, but it's harder to bring people into that field today. And then the second one is the one thing that I know is going to be on the ballot, I think in 2014, which is the personal property tax, which the legislature has eliminated and the governor has signed. But it's very important that we eliminate that tax because it's a tax on capital, and ours is an extremely capital intensive business. We spend 50 to 60 cents of capital for every dollar of annual sales that we have on a contracted. Now we don't have to spend that every year, but when we're investing in a new program, if we want to grow sales 100 million, we have to invest $60 million of capital. We pay personal property tax on that, and that's a very high tax in Michigan relative to other states, and so it makes the cost of capital significantly higher for our business.
Okay, I'm Tim Leuliette of Visteon. Visteon, the story of Visteon, maybe many of you know, was really all of the Ford's component businesses that was spun off in the year 2000. all of those spin-offs, Delphi, Visteon, et cetera, ran into challenges given the economic base they had. At that time, if we go back to the 2001-2 timeframe, Visteon had 27,000 employees in the United States. Today we have 1,200. Back then we had over 36 plants. Today we have 4. So as we look at what Visteon is today, Visteon is sort of a symbol of what happened in the cost, the scar tissue, the dynamics that occurred during that Great Recession and the recreating of what the automobile industry is today. I put that in context of the fact that we have 110 plants in China and are building 10 plants a year in China. And the issue is, well, are you exporting from China back to the States? And the answer is no. We build in China for China. Back when Visteon was spun off, China built less vehicles than Belgium. Today they build a lot more than the United States, and they're adding enough production for another United States worth of production. So as we look on a global basis, we're investing where our market is. And if you look at the market, and this may come as an interesting surprise, is that the United States today only represents 12% of the vehicles produced on Earth. We used to dominate that business. The governor talked about exporting and where we created the automobile, and we did. Today, we only account for 12% of the production on Earth. So for us, the United States represents 9%. It's almost similar to the global production. And the issue is, what do we do in the United States? What do we do in Michigan? Is where we have our corporate headquarters. It's where we do the engineering and application engineering for the United States. And so of that 55,000 or so employees we have now globally in both our consolidated businesses and our JVs, there's about 1,200 left in the United States, and about 800 of those are in Michigan. And when we talk about where do we go from here, the issue is talent and technology. If I sat inside one of our prototypes of a vehicle that we are showing the industry for later this decade as to where we see electronics going, and it's such a marvelous thing to sit in. As the guys kind of laughed because I got in and turned the key and I watched the instrument panel come alive and I watched the displays come alive, and I turned it off and turned it on again because I just loved seeing it. It was like a video game. It was phenomenal. That technology is going to change the vehicle considerably over the next 10 years. And when I look at that combined with the impact of fuel economy standards and legislative issues across the board, the technological change of the automobile the next 10 years will be greater than the last 30. It's going to be an amazing era for the automobile. And the issue is the technology base, the creative talent to do that is here if we can harness it, if we can get people back into our industry. And I think that's the challenge. And the message to me was set strongly by what I call Detroit 2.0. Back about 20 years ago, between 275 and US 23, a corridor was built where Nissan came, and Honda, and Hyundai, and Toyota coming back. And when they built technical capability, they came here. They came to Southeast Michigan because that's where that talent exists. Yep. And as we look at the technological change in automobile over the next 10 years, we need to harness that dynamism. We need to harness that creative talent because the world's going to do it someplace, and they might as well do it here.
Let's talk a little bit about the industry and its current state. North America, back to 15 million vehicles on an annual basis. OEMs, suppliers are generally profitable. I think there's some real concerns about capacity, just given the cost cutting that's happened over the last couple of years, and not to mention the talent issues that you guys talked about. Europe, hopefully there are some that are prognosticating that we've hit the bottom, and that the second half of 13 will be better than the first half. And Asia continues to grow, albeit at a slower pace, roughly 6 to 7% for the next year. What are you guys seeing?
Well, let me take it maybe and tie it to talent. So I don't disagree with anything you said except maybe Europe. But I'll let you be the expert on that. So I think a couple of contributors. So the North American industry is recovering, right? We're not getting close to 17.5 or 0.8 yet, but we're on that slow and steady growth path up. And now our issue, at least from a Yazaki standpoint, is we can get fresh talent. So we can hire engineers out of schools. We'd like to have more, but we can find them. But we can't staff every program with brand new green engineers. So really our gap is in experienced engineers, people who know our customers, know the business, know how to get work done from the day they walk in the door. And maybe not the three of our companies, but the supply base in total and the OEMs as well are really battling it out for those skilled and capable folks because they left the industry during the downturn. So volumes are back, but the people aren't back who can do the work. The other thing I would say about the global automotive business is our North American headquarters is actually responsible for the global GM, Ford, and Fiat Chrysler business, and actually Hyundai, believe it or not. So we're the global headquarters for those customers. And when those customers create a global platform, which they are more and more often trying to leverage scale and have common design and common componentry, we take talent from southeastern Michigan and send it around the world to work with those customers and to work in regions where we're just developing engineering talent, program management talent, even customer interface or sales talent. So I would agree with what Tim said. People in southeastern Michigan know how to do automotive. And we need to continue to grow and leverage that capability because we're really teaching, at least with our company, in many cases, the rest of the world how to do that business. So I think it's about staying ahead of that and not, you can't relax into, well, Toyota, Honda, Nissan, Hyundai, they all came here in the last 15 or 20 years. What will keep them here? What will keep the center of excellence for global automotive in Michigan?
Yep.
Yeah, I think I would echo the comments in terms of our business is basically going to double from the 2010 timeframe because of the growth in the gasoline direct injection business, which is a whole new product. So we're able to maybe do a little bit more with brand new engineers because of the fact that nobody's ever made what we're making today before. But where we see the real weakness in the system today for talent is more on that manufacturing floor personnel who's a technician who has the skills to be able to run the complex equipment that we have or that we can train. And when you look at what's coming out of our school systems today, if you start in the 6th grade and we did a survey of the Talent 2025, which is a West Michigan region group of employers. And if you start in the 6th grade, 76% of the kids that start in the 6th grade do not graduate high school with high school competency. A lot of them are getting a diploma, but they don't have the capability of doing high school work. And so we're now taking a group of students that we need to do remedial education in order to get them to do basics because every person that works in my plant needs to know trigonometry and geometry. That's usually the class that a lot of people have trouble with. And so, we're struggling with trying to upgrade the talent that we have. And yes, we can hire people that are 50 years old with some of the skill, but the concern I have for that is that might get us through today, but it doesn't get us through a long term and even the contract length in many cases that we'll be manufacturing this product. So we need to really encourage families to start looking once again at manufacturing careers as really viable alternatives for the family and certainly great income and great certainly very nice middle class life.
Going back to your comments, I think there's a macroeconomic issue here. Remember that as bad as Europe is, on a bad day, Europe still makes more cars than they do in North America. So the issue is all relative. Outside of, on our core businesses, our revenue was up quarter over quarter in Europe this year for the first time in 4 years. So we're seeing, whether Europe is struggling along or what have you, the technology game that we're involved in with electric vehicles and other things is allowing us to expand in either case. I think, though, so therefore, Asia's growing and there's demand. We do a lot of engineering here, which we could do elsewhere. And the question is, we've got the skill sets, we're trying to do it here. Manufacturing is a different story. And I think we were talking about this earlier, and I think this is one of the keys. It has political ramifications as well as economic. And that is, when I had my first plant manager's job back in 1983, I was 6 years old. I always add that part to that. We paid $24 an hour for people to work on the line. And they paid nothing for their health care. And $24 an hour in 1983 is over $40 an hour today. That provided a great income for these people. And therefore, a breadwinner could provide for his family. They could have 2 cars. They may have a place up. I mean, it was real money. Today, for that same job in the United States, we pay $17 an hour in today's dollars. And those people pay about $200 a month for their health care. So we've taken our manufacturing base, that middle class, and we have transferred it from the middle of the middle class to the working poor. And without a spouse also working, the family has a tough time living the American dream. You say, so what does that mean? The bottom line is, we have repotted the American manufacturing base to be globally competitive, but at a cost. Mm-hmm. And now we can't attract some of the talent in the manufacturing side that we used to, because that opportunity to make a good living doesn't appear to be there. And that's the cost of being globally competitive. And so I think one of the challenges that we have as an industry is creating that path to an income level, or that path to a career that still attracts the manufacturing talent in. We can create the path for the engineers. I have no problem for that. And there's always room for a few finance guys here and there. We can, create a path for them.
More than a few.
More than a few. More than a few. But it's that manufacturing base, which today, to be globally competitive, is 17 to 18 bucks. That's what it is. And they have to pay for their health care. That's the dynamic. And that's what's changing a bit our ability to be able to attract people in the industry.
So how has, I think a couple of you have mentioned the OEM's push to global platforms and manufacture the vehicles, assemble the vehicles where they're sold. How has that impacted your strategic activities and or how you source talent and or make investment decisions?
Right. I think for us, I maybe have 2 very different scenarios. We certainly go where the customer is, and that from a design and development standpoint, that's the engineering community. And for my direct customers and the other customers of Yazaki, Honda, Toyota, Nissan, they're doing design and development in the U.S. and southeastern Michigan. So that's where our engineering community is. But we have the same in China and in India and in Japan, right, where the customer is. They tend to assemble in the United States and in Mexico. And our product, really we have two different scenarios, 2 different products, and it's about what makes business sense for the product. One product being the electrical system in a vehicle, very labor intensive, very component intensive. We can't do that in the US anywhere, not just in Michigan. There's no way to be competitive in that sense. So we do that as close as we can to the customer's assembly plant. We also have a stamping business, and that's the one that's down in Petoskey. So we had a customer, a brand new OEM, come in and say, we want to give you this piece of business, but we think you ought to do it in Mexico. So we said, Petoskey is our center of excellence for this product. Let us show you what we can do in Michigan with the product. And they came and met the people, they saw the facility, they knew what we were willing to invest, and they knew what partnership we had with the state and later with the federal government in terms of taxes and in terms of training, and they were sold. So an OEM that came in, not a US-based OEM, that's all I'll say, and thought, why on earth would you do it in northern Michigan? And once we physically got them here, which was a bit of a challenge because they didn't understand why they had to go to this rural community, they were sold. So I think the intention of the OEM is always to have you as close as possible, but if you can make a business case and you can demonstrate that you have the capability and wherewithal to make it work, they're going to do what makes business sense to them as well.
Yep.
Our approach is that Michigan is our base center of expertise in the world for advanced fuel systems. And we do all of our development here, and we do copy exact in our foreign facilities. And Actually, Michigan is the only plant that ships to another foreign location. The only place we ship, and we ship to China, because we ship a lot of our technology every day in perishable tools that we use in our machining operation. We make all of that in Michigan, and we ship it to our facilities in China or Poland or Europe. So this is our center of expertise. This is where we develop all of our product, and then we copy the exact manufacturing process in the foreign location or the low-cost location.
In our business, and again, you have to build where the customer is. Again, remember that if you're building where the customer is, 88% of what you will invest in will be outside the United States,
Right.
by definition of where the customer is. On electronics, which are small and cost intensive, we can do those in 3 or 4 places around the world and ship everywhere. So we do that in China, in Mexico, and Manaus, Brazil, and in Europe, and we cover the world. You say, why Brazil? This is another kind of surprising fact. Brazil will overtake Japan in 1 or 2 years to be the 3rd largest vehicle producer on earth. So again, we keep thinking of these backwards little countries, and this, no. Brazil's massive and capable, and finally is doing its thing, going to produce about 5 million vehicles. But the larger parts, you don't ship very far. And we have a certain line of our business where we supply the interior of a vehicle, especially like in China, from the instrument panel to the package tray, from the headlining to the carpeting to the seats. And that's all done in broadcast, meaning that when the car is coming down the line, we build it in line with that car, whether it's the leather seat with 6-way power or 12 power or whatever. It's delivered to the assembly line in minutes ahead of production, not days or weeks or months. So therefore, it can't be far away. It has to be close to the plant. And so our North American business, in many cases, is supplied out of Mexico or the U.S. or Canada. But, the electronics can come from anywhere. And I think that's the nature of this business. Most of us, if the parts are of any size at all, don't really want to ship across the oceans. Right. Mm-hmm. You really want to build where the market is. And I think that's the other challenge on capital, is back in 1985, 1990, when half of the business in the world was here, you knew where you were going to invest. Today, with 12% of the business here, you have a different investment.
Right. I think, Tim, though, it also goes to the cost structure in those now developed markets, right? Yeah. I know some of our customers 10 years ago had low-cost country initiatives, they called them, and they expected you to be in certain countries in Asia for a certain portion of your business because they believed it made sense. I think it did for a very brief period of time, but now as those markets develop and that workforce develops, the costs are increasing, and so I think it's part of that total economic rebalancing, right, that we went through in a very, very painful way because we were on the upside. But these other markets are now coming up that
we pay more for labor in Korea than we do in the United States. Mm-hmm. And so that's an example of how those markets have, and Japan, even with the weakening yen, the yen would have to probably get to 150 mm-hmm. for Japan to be competitive as a manufacturer. So a weakening yen is nothing to worry about. They're just not competitive at this stage. But you're right. I mean, and it's surprising. If I look today between Korea, Southern U.S., Portugal, Spain, even around the São Paulo area in Brazil, mm-hmm. the wage rates aren't all that much different anymore. Still a lower in China, et cetera. But if you got 3% labor or 3 to 4% direct labor, that's not driving you as much as transportation costs and fuel and all the other elements. 30 days of inventory on the water, you don't want to know about it.
Too much risk. Yeah.
So with building on the build it where they're sold kind of concept, we've seen many Asian manufacturers come to the United States to build facilities. And John, you had mentioned earlier that one thing the state of Michigan can think about as it thinks about attracting new business and investment to the state is the personal property tax elimination. Are there any other ideas that you all may have based on your experiences that the state could consider to attract more investment to the state?
Well, I think we need to do what we can to promote manufacturing, and in order to return, I think, manufacturing to its luster. And part of that may be, I mean, labor for us is less than 10% of our selling price. So whether I pay a little bit more wages is really not going to make that much of a difference. Right. And I think most manufacturers that are left in the U.S. in the automotive business are in a similar position. I think what we need to do is restore the manufacturing sector as a place for people to go to work, because the biggest fear I have, other than capital, and is around talent. Because if it's easier for me at some point in time to attract talent in China that maybe I'm even paying lower to, I don't know how I can develop the product that I need to develop today in Michigan. If I have a better place for talent somewhere else in the world. And so we have a good base here, but I don't know that it's growing right now. And I think we have to regrow that base and recenter that engineering talent and that manufacturing talent back in Michigan, or else I think it'll be, we'll lose it.
There's a dichotomy here too. There's the engineering technical talent, and there's the manufacturing talent. Right. I think we have, we have got some of the best universities on earth, in Michigan. And to tap those, I mean, what bothers me today, for those of you familiar with the Southfield area and the old town center, Prudential Town Center as it was originally called, all those bronze glass business buildings, multiply that by 2, and that is a complex around a university in Chennai, India, that size, full of software engineers. And there's 32 of us companies around the world who invest, and we own floors of those buildings, and they do software. And it's not because they're cheaper, it's because that's where they are. And they're there because the universities and the government put together a policy that said this is an area of the world in the industry that we're going to dominate. And therefore they're there, the capability's there. We have capability in automotive. We can harness that, focus it, managing, so we can get the technical talent, the engineering talent. The next issue there is, okay, we can create ideas here. We can create intellectual property. We can create the drawings. We can create the specifications. We can create all the elements of that. But where do you make it? That's the next step. Right. And if we don't make something, if we just engineer it and send the prints, over by electronic transmission, we're not really creating that middle class. That's the manufacturing base of this. So that is the challenge. And right now, there's a lack of excitement around manufacturing. Whether you just pick up Wall Street Journal and read it, or one day stay home from work and watch CNBC, and you would think that the only thing going on in the world is high tech or pharmaceuticals. Mm-hmm. Nothing else is mentioned. So we've got to, and Wall Street has lost their love affair with manufacturing, and we see that in our multiples. We, as a manufacturing group, automotive in particular, trade at 2 turns of EBITDA lower than we would if we traded the same companies in Hong Kong or Singapore, because manufacturing is not cool. But it's manufacturing that builds the middle class and builds the economy. So we've got to not only work about getting the people into the business, but get the investment community back and interested in this. Half of my shareholders are not American. And they want to know why we are an American company paying 40% tax rates and trading at a 5 multiple, where if we're a Hong Kong company, we'd be at 15% tax rates, trading at a 7 multiple. We've got to erase those kinds of deltas.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. I think the perception issue, certainly for manufacturing, for automotive, absolutely we see it in terms of talent and attracting even our own kids. I mean, one of my favorite initiatives of the governor is educating kids in Michigan and keeping them in Michigan, right? Getting them great jobs. Because I have 2 sons and I want to keep them close. But those kids, even those kids who grew up in Michigan and around automotive, maybe even more so than others, don't want to be part of the automotive industry. So we have to really rebuild our reputation across all fronts, whether it's investors or stockholders or talent. I think also universities. So our universities need to value and appreciate automotive and vice versa, right? Automotive leaders need to be inside those universities. And I was thrilled to see the 5 partner schools for Yazaki are here at the conference. So what a luxury it is for us to be in a region where we have 5 schools we work with for all the fresh talent that we need. We don't have to leave the state, right? They're right in our surrounding area, and we can send our alumni back there and we can have them speak in classrooms. So I think for the state, it's really listening to business and being that conduit between the universities, business leaders, young people in Michigan to really help us make the case.
One of the things, the automobile is not just an automobile. It's becoming the largest mobile device a consumer buys.
Yeah.
And I think, and you've seen this with Ford and some of the other of the OEMs, they have grasped that, and they are, in a variety of terms, democratization is the word that Ford uses, of taking technology and bringing it down. And therefore, in the old days, when new technology came forward, you'd put it in the Lincolns and the Cadillacs and the BMWs and the Mercedes, and then over time it would come down. We're starting up from the bottom because it's the young people who are the most open to electronics and technology. If we embrace the fact that we are building the largest mobile device, that it's going to be interfacing with both fixed site, other vehicles, the cloud, and all the technology that represents, and the alternative engines and power sources it'll need, you create excitement in the industry and excitement in manufacturing because it's a whole new world. We've got to grasp that. Maybe you got to communicate it better. We got to form the alliances with the universities. But it's real. And if we don't do it here, we'll do it someplace. But it's going to get done.
Right.
Colleen, you talked about your partner schools. Can you share a little bit about what you're doing and what you're talking to them about?
Sure. So we work with U of M both in Dearborn and in Ann Arbor. We work with Michigan State, with Wayne State, University of Detroit Mercy. Is that 5? Yeah. Oh, Lawrence Technological University. I would be in trouble if I forgot one. So we do internship and co-op programs with them. We have our alumni from those schools as part of the recruiting team. Obviously, we do recruiting events. We encourage our staff that are alums to go back and participate in classroom events, to speak, to do case studies and class projects. So it's really connecting the students to what it's like to work in automotive and get the real feeling for that, and that it is a global business, and there's an excitement there and a challenge there, and also helping the universities to understand this is what the world of work expects of their students as they're coming out.
Well, there's a stat that's out there that says since 2006, 60% of college graduates are not working in their chosen field.
Right.
Because the degree that they chose, there just aren't any jobs for them. So plenty of opportunity around this table here. Right. So as you let me just get my thoughts here.
You know, Ray, while you're doing that, I'm going to give a data point to play off what Tim said. Tim, you talked about the car being this mobile device, right? So we're all thinking about our cell phones. There's an interesting just data point from 2010. There was a study done of graduating college students, and primarily women, because the study was done by Inforum with Deloitte, and they asked these new-to-be graduates, what industry is most interesting to you? Where would you like to work? And there were 14 industries, and automotive was second to last. And so I think it goes to the reputation issue. 2010, right? We're just coming out of this horrible period. They're saying, I don't think that's for me. The worst, in the students' view, was real estate. Right, so we had the bubble.
It wasn't lawyers?
It wasn't law. The number one interesting industry for these students was consumer products. So our take on that, right, from a group of female executives in automotive is we said, the vehicle is a consumer product. It's the largest, most expensive consumer product you'll probably ever buy. So let's market working in automotive as you're working in the consumer products industry and make it fun and sexy and about all those great technologies and design elements. And so I think we've got real opportunities. We just need to think about it in a little bit different way.
You know, it's a good point. On this mobile device issue for us, we have to interface with lots of software and innovative people creating a variety of elements to make the vehicle work. They come constantly, 4 or 5 a week come in pitching their technology or their software. We passed on a few. The guy came in with a thing called Bluetooth. We said, that'll never work. But we do a lot of that. We do a lot of that, and it's interesting. We have 37 partners in software today, and not one is based in Michigan. They're in Helsinki, they're in Tel Aviv, they're in Budapest, they're in Shanghai, they're in Austin, Texas. Again, to make the automobile more of an electronic mobile device, capable of HTML5 language, working the pico nodes of active arrays, all of that, we can't get here. And this is something that, as I said, that we are going to have to do if we're going to make this industry vibrant.
It feels like a little bit about the culture and changing the culture, like the Governor Snyder had indicated. We're bumping up against our time here. As we wrap it up, can I ask each of you to share your final thoughts? If there was a key takeaway from the session that the group ought to walk away with, what would that be?
I get
to go right to left.
Okay. I think one of the things that the governor said earlier today really resonates with me from an automotive standpoint. And he said, Michigan has been through these cycles, and one of our challenges is to learn, right, and do something different as you go forward. And I think also when you're the best or you think you're at the top of your game, it's that much more challenging to continuously improve, right? You're really trying to leapfrog yourself, which is a huge challenge. And I think from a Michigan and an automotive standpoint, we need to make sure we're keeping the broad view, that the global marketplace is the competition, not just Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama. It's the world. And we have to be competitive, and that may mean it's uncomfortable. Right? It's not the jobs that our parents or grandparents had coming out of high school. But there are great jobs in automotive, and there are great partnerships between automotive companies, suppliers, universities, the government, right? All of that has to come together to make it work. Because if we keep doing what we've done, we're very unfortunately likely, or we have the risk that we're going to go through this cycle again. So we have to get better and do better each time.
I would just say that we have to do a much better job, I think, of all automotive suppliers and manufacturing companies generally, of marketing ourselves to families in terms of to make us a career of choice as opposed to a career of last resort, which I think we may be sometimes. And I think there's a lot of innovative ways we can do that. We do something which is earn and learn, where people are working and we're paying for all of their college expenses. So we have to do things like that, I think, in order to reach out to our future workers, in order to try to develop that talent and improve the image of manufacturing as a career choice.
I think, first of all, the governor's done a tremendous job of helping lead a change in the state from a culture perspective that's allowing us at least to open doors. We now need, as an industry, to take advantage of that template that he's laid out, of saying we can attract the talent. We need a stronger industry university alliance to prepare us for this largest mobile device story, this consumer product story, this innovation that's going on. And we've got the ability to go do it. We've got the balance sheets in the industry to go do it. We've got the leadership to go do it. I guess we just got to go do it.
There you go.
Yep. Thank you. My takeaway from this is that there's a number of challenges, but the opportunities are far-reaching, and hopefully this will be the start for that change in the culture and the way we think about automotive, and hopefully it'll rise up that scale of industries that people are really interested in. So please join me in thanking our panelists for this afternoon.